I will now call the November 3rd, 2021 regular meeting to order. I'd like to welcome Assistant Clerk of the Board Ryan Sharp, who will be clerking today's session. Ryan joined the county in July of this year from the County of Humboldt, where he served as Deputy Clerk of the Board, and we welcome you, Ryan, and look forward to having you serve as the clerk for our land use sessions. With that, please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Supervisor Anderson? Supervisor Lawson-Remer?
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond?
Here.
Vice Chair Vargas?
Vargas here.
And Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher here. First on the agenda is non-agendized public communication, an opportunity for the members of the public to address us on items that are not on our agenda but within our purview. To better facilitate the meeting, we will limit this to 5 in-person and 5 remote callers. Any remaining will be heard at the conclusion of the meeting. I'll ask the clerk to call forward 5 and 5 at this time.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 6 requests to speak on matters not, or we have 21 requests to speak on matters not listed on the agenda, 6 in person and 15 by phone. For those that requested to speak via phone, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions provided to you. We will begin with the in-person speakers. We will be calling the first 5 speakers pursuant to the board's rules of procedures. All remaining speakers will be heard at the conclusion of today's session. As your name is called, please come forward and stand against the east wall under the murals until it is your turn to speak. I would like to invite forward the following individuals: Russell Walsh, Gretchen Newsom, Audra, Katie Meyer, and Tony Ritchie. You can come forward in any order.
Thank you, sir. Russell Walsh. I'm here again on the Loveland Reservoir issues, and I think we probably don't need to review that it's in bad shape. I believe that we probably all understand that at this point. I'm here still representing the diverse lake users. They come from everywhere in the county. It might be a Navy guy getting up at 32nd Street and driving out there to fish at the lake. That's how people use these lakes. They pick a destination and they branch out into the county to use those, so it affects all potential people needing recreation in our county and that enjoy that type of recreation. The Sweetwater Authority is a county partner. You know, whether we want to view them as an elected body down in the South Bay, good morning, or we want to see them as, you know, independent. They really are a county partner. They're going to be bringing forth some requests for urban runoff changes in the East County and through their watersheds. They're going to want cooperation from the county on that and other things. I think it's important that, as they expect the county to be a quality partner, we expect them to be a quality partner for your constituents throughout the county. What I wanted to go at is that, you know, they are on balance probably a pretty good organization. I know Supervisor Cox has done great things with them in the large area that is the South County, and Supervisor Vargas is probably doing that already. I'm not specifically aware of issues, but she's going to for sure, and they're going to help. But on balance, as a county partner and having this recreation facility out in the East County, I think that they need to be good partners more universally. And I know it's not real palatable to say that we want to go hard on them somehow as an independent entity, but I think I'd like you to consider some way of breaching this problem between the public and this public partner. Thank you very much for your time.
Good morning, Supervisors. Gretchen Newsom on behalf of IBW 569. We were made aware and we saw the horrible comments that were made last night by a member of the public that were racist, full of bigotry and hate. I wanted to let you know that IBW 569 stands firmly and strongly against any form of hate and bigotry. And Supervisor Nora Vargas, thank you for standing up to that. We appreciate you and we do love you.
My name is Tony Ricciuti. I reside in District 3. Before you start my time, I would just like to say that I would like to speak to all 5 of you individually, not as a Democrat or a Republican or an independent or a communist or a fascist or a socialist, just as a human being, a father and a grandfather. In August of this year, UN Secretary Antonio Gutierrez said, today's IPCC Group 1 report is a code red for humanity. I remind you, it is a code red for you and everyone in your life you love. I stand before you with a heavy heart. I feel a moral imperative to be here, a member of a generation that let our capacity to seek narrow personal, financial, and material well-being eclipse our capacity to be compassionate and generous. We let our misplaced pride and hubris as members of a nation state or political party or ideology supersede our connection to our shared humanity with each other and the world. Excuse me. When I was a teenager, I saw African Americans and Mexican Americans beaten and sometimes killed as they fought for freedom and justice. I saw a war in Vietnam with images of burning women and children flashed across the TV screen. When we were young and at school, we would scramble underneath our desks to avoid falling atomic bombs from far-off lands. Today's youth suffer the same terrifying drills, but the threats are now coming from their own neighborhoods. When I was young, the youth marched for basic human and civil rights and marched to end an immoral and unjust war. Today's youth must march and plead for the right to inherit a planet that still supports human existence. At a time when we need to be the most united to overcome the greatest threat faced in human existence. Can I finish? The collapse of our ecosystems through human abuse and neglect, we are instead the most divided. But as long as I have breath in this body, I will stand with the youth embracing these challenges. I will not hate anyone. Rather, I will let my compassion and love transcend my basic instincts and will join with this board or any other agency or individuals, and I'll just cut a little short, seeking solutions. Finally, we can join together as brothers and sisters, as earthlings, dependent on the health and generosity of our common home planet Earth, or as Martin Luther King said, we can all perish as fools.
Good morning, board and staff. My name is Katie Meyer. I live in Supervisor Fletcher's district. I'm here to talk about how the county must prioritize taking bold climate action. I want to thank the county so much and the staff for their hard work and for taking the first step by proposing the regional decarbonization framework. We really appreciate this first step in outlining the policies that need to be put in place for San Diego to really lead the nation in terms of reducing emissions. Before this year, the county has not taken any meaningful action to address this climate crisis. The new board's words hearten us, but now it's time to follow them up with enforceable, accountable action. The climate crisis is here, and the recent IPCC report calling out Code Red for Humanity makes it clear that local, state, and federal governments need to act now. We need to eliminate carbon emissions by 2035. The county must act immediately and boldly to address this issue. We are at a defining moment where future generations facing the consequences of our inactions will long ask us, did we do enough to combat this? Did we do everything in our power to reduce emissions? Climate change threatens everything about life as we know it. And we need the decarbonization framework to stay true to its goal of zero carbon emissions by 2035. This effort also needs to be truly collaborative and work with all the stakeholders in the county and needs to be at the scale of the actual crisis. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. As the next speaker comes up, I'd also like to invite forward Steve Hansen.
Audra, good morning. Nathan, that was actually really nice of you to let that man keep speaking. I'm impressed because you should do it more often. But about yesterday, when people, you know, going into a race thing isn't necessarily the best option when we're trying to fight for things. But if you can understand how frustrated people are because they come in here every month to try and tell you guys how they feel about what's going on in their families' lives and the people that they know and love, what they're dealing with, and it falls upon deaf ears. People that don't even want to pay attention to, or look at you or, you know, take you credibly. And we have to listen to Wilma Wooten, who's getting information passed down from the CDC, and it's not information that she even obtains herself. And then we have a doctor come in and give you information that should weigh heavy upon your hearts and minds if you want to take in all information. But if it's not coming from Wilma Wooten, you don't want to consider it as factual. But that's just really frustrating for the people because we come in and you're supposed to be our servants. You're supposed to listen to what we say and take it into consideration, not just do what you want, because that's the way you feel it should be. Like, your job is to listen to the people. And instead you listen to a doctor that can't even do her own graphs or provide information on deaths as an adverse reaction to a vaccine that's not even a vaccine, it's a medical device. So when people become frustrated, I mean, you have to understand that's why. It's because we need things to change. And that's why we come here, because you guys are the people that can do that.
Good morning. My name is Steve Hansen. I'm here representing San Diego 350, and I'm a resident in Councilman Vargan's, or Supervisor Vargan's district, and have been a California or San Diego resident for 55 years. So, like others, I really want to encourage you to take this item 3 very seriously and really prioritize taking action in a bold manner around climate change. It's basically been recognized that this decade of 2020 to 2030 is absolutely critical and essential for implementing bold climate action and implementing things quickly. So as you look at the climate action plan, I urge you to incentivize and to streamline the distributive renewable energy generation and to accelerate the county's transition to 100% clean energy, mainly through rooftop solar and the battery storage that's before you, and to do so quickly. I went on the county website and looked at the CAPS project timeline. Currently, that timeline concludes in 2024 with public hearings. That's not fast enough. We're in a mess right today. So I would encourage you to create a quicker timeline as you move forward. So bold action now requires quick action as well. So we need your leadership. Thank you.
Now we will hear from those that requested to speak by phone. Again, we will be hearing from the first 5 callers. The remaining callers will be heard at the conclusion of today's session. We will be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of their phone number. You will hear a notification that your call has been unmuted. You will need then to press *6 to unmute your phone. Each caller will be asked to state their name for the record. You will have 2 minutes to address the board. I would remind callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. And can you please identify the first caller?
Our first caller is 1925. 1925. Please press *6 to unmute.
Good morning, Supervisors. My name is Rita Clements, and I live in Nora Vargas's District 1. I am a volunteer with San Diego 350. which is part of the Green New Deal Alliance. I strongly support the regional decarbonization framework developed by the School of Global Policy and Strategy at UC San Diego and the Energy Policy Initiative Center at the University of San Diego School of Law. I believe building electrification for all new construction is part of a solution to reach our decarbonization goal. Heat pump water heaters and induction stoves will be more efficient and will decrease the amount of noxious air pollutants in our homes and lower the number of emergency room visits experienced by children with asthma. We need to provide incentives for people living in communities of concern by understanding the 10 lifelines described by the Transportation Equity Working Group. Sandag's Regional Transportation Plan is supported by labor and environmentalists. The implementation of SB 743 is an essential part of land use development policies. The regional decarbonization framework needs to stay true to its goal of zero carbon emissions by 2035 and be specific on achieving this goal. This effort also needs to be a truly collaborative effort, working with the 18 cities, the Port District, Sandag, MTS, and the school districts to get the region to zero carbon by 2035. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is 5033. 5033, please press *6 to unmute.
Hi, this is Gretchen Gohl with Reopen San Diego. I was in a group presentation in the board's meeting yesterday, and in our group, we had a cardiologist who presented a slideshow full of data, which I would like for your fact-checking doctors that you've hired as your misinformation panel to please fact-check that presentation and let us know what they found to be false. I'm willing to bet they won't say a word because they know it's all true. So Nathan Fletcher and other supervisors, what are you going to do with that information? Ignore it? Pretend it doesn't exist because it doesn't fall in line with the accepted narrative? How can you in good conscience mandate these vaccines? First, you ruin people's lives with the lockdowns and restrictions, and now you are ruining lives by forcing an experimental vaccine that we know from the FDA emergency use authorization documents causes death and a long list of severe side effects. Where there is risk, there must be a choice. The FDA also admitted that there will be more cases of myocarditis in children with these vaccines. Myocarditis is very serious. It's permanent damage to the heart tissue and shortens lives. We at Reopen are not going to back down. We are going to keep putting this information out to the public that you wish wasn't true. You will not wear us down. We are growing in numbers, and we will keep showing up for as long as it takes. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is 2153. 2153, please press *6 to unmute.
Good morning. This is Kelly McCormick. I'm a public health educator with a focus on youth, alcohol, tobacco, and drug prevention. I respectfully ask that you focus on youth and the effect that increased marijuana commercialization has on them. Both local and national studies show that when marijuana is regulated and more available, the perception of the drug as harmful goes down. And studies by the RAND Corporation show that when young people are exposed to marijuana advertising, they are more likely to use the drug. As you may know, the Center for Community Research has reported that visits to San Diego County Hospital emergency departments now average 29 visits a day. Many are from young people experiencing mental health problems due to marijuana use, including marijuana-induced psychosis and suicidal ideation. children who have inadvertently overdosed on candy marijuana edibles, and those experiencing hyperemesis syndrome, also known as scromiting, because it's characterized by unrelenting vomiting accompanied by screaming due to the pain, and that is not an exaggeration. Just last week, I attended a seminar sponsored by the African American Tobacco Control Leadership Council, raising awareness about the harm caused by aggressive marketing of menthol tobacco products. Equity in that regard equals an end to the sale of to the sale and marketing of menthol-flavored tobacco. Likewise, I would say that equity also includes an end to the sale and marketing of marijuana. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is 6676. 6676, please press *6 to unmute. 6676, please press *6 to unmute.
Good morning. I am Katie Papaniak, a mental health advocate. The Western States Marijuana Summit, sponsored by HIDA, NMI, and our San Diego County Marijuana Prevention Initiative, kicked off yesterday as a webinar with nationally known speakers such as Dr. Renee Lev, emergency addiction physician at Scripps Mercy. But the work of Greta Wengert caught my eye. She works with the Integral Ecology Research Center on pesticide contamination and the effects on forest ecosystems from cannabis cultivation on public lands. This began in 2012 when a dead Pacific fisher, a marmot-type animal, was tested and pesticides were the cause. Now there are 2 other species that are under investigation. U.S. and California Fish and Wildlife, Forest Service, Hoopa Valley Tribe, the BLM, and UC Davis have partnered to eradicate these illegal cannabis grows in what used to be primarily Northern California, but have been moving toward Southern California. We have seen the trash left at these sites that can only be removed by helicopter and the water stolen from communities during a drought. Sadly, animals are eating this toxic trash and it moves down the ecosystem. 9 endangered California condors died in the Dolan fire of August 2020, which torched 125,000 acres, destroyed 14 homes, injured firefighters, cost $62 million to fight, and was caused by an illegal grower. Toxicology sampling of 308 sites from 2014 to 21 found 32 types of pesticides. 5 years later, after the sites had been eradicated, there was still 16% toxicants, 32% in the water and the soil, and 37% in the plants.
Chair Fletcher, that concludes the request for non-agenda public communication this morning. For the remaining callers that requested to speak on matters not listed on agenda, please hang up and call back at the conclusion of the session.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is approval of the board meeting statement of proceedings for Wednesday, October 20th, 2021. I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Motion by myself, seconded by Supervisor Lawson-Remer. Please vote.
Chair Fletcher, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We'll now proceed with the formation of our consent calendar. I'll ask the clerk if there's any items the public wishes pulled for discussion today.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Items number 3, 5, and 6 have been pulled by the public. I will also note that items 2 and 4 have been withdrawn at the request of the Deputy Chief Administrative Officer. Again, items 2 and 4 have been withdrawn. All other items on the Board of Supervisors agenda may be placed on the consent calendar for your board's consideration.
I'll now go to my colleagues. The only 2 items remaining on consent are items 1 and 7. Start with Supervisor Anderson. Anything you wish pulled?
No, thank you.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
I'm not going to pull, but I'd like to just make a comment on yesterday.
Sure.
Yeah.
I had nothing to pull, but is this an appropriate time to make a comment yesterday? Yeah, I just wanted to reflect. I received a huge number of people who reached out to me last night and this morning about the meeting that we went through yesterday, and reiterating that they feel like their voice can't be heard here. They feel marginalized by an environment that feels hostile, where a few people's speaking has crowded out many people's voices, and has created a space that does not feel comfortable for a lot of people. So I want to reflect on that, and I wanted to ask, as we think about our meetings moving forward, what we can do, if we think that, maybe 30 seconds is enough time for people to make a comment. That's what happens in the Assembly and the Senate and at the City Council. So if people are repeating things that others have said previously, maybe 30 seconds is enough. But I would just put that out there that I think I'd like to, it's not a formal proposal because I know this is not the place for that, but to suggest that looking forward to our next meeting next Tuesday, that we think about how we can create more space for more diverse voices to be heard by ensuring that we don't allow our meeting to be monopolized by a few.
Yeah, and I think it's an appropriate time for us to review that. We always set the rules of procedure, but we have it within our ability to change those. If we change them, we'll change them consistently for all speakers.
Exactly.
But I do think it's an appropriate time for us as a board to kind of think about and consider, what we want to do to facilitate public engagement in a meaningful and consistent way.
Exactly.
But also, being mindful of the environments being created.
Yeah, and I think clearly we can never, ever constrain speech based on content. We must be neutral across everyone, and everyone has a right to speak, but that doesn't mean people have the right to crowd out others from speaking. So.
Good, this would be a good topic for us to have on an ongoing basis moving forward.
I don't have any items to pull, but on that particular item, I just wanted to share that as your representative of CSAC, if you have any recommendations, I am part of a subcommittee that's looking at civic engagement and how we as board members work together across the state to make recommendations to the state legislature around the Brown Act and engagement and really a lot of these antiquated rules that exist, including not being able to do things on Zoom and how people speak. So anyway, feel free to reach out to me and share information, and then eventually we'll have a discussion, I think, here on the board as well.
Perfect, thank you. Back to consent. Supervisor Desmond.
I feel I have a comment, but I'll leave it off since it's not an agendized item. But I have no other items to pull, and I'll move to approve items 1 and 7.
Great. We've got a motion by Supervisor Desmond, seconded by myself, to approve the consent calendar, which is items 1 and 7. Please vote.
Chair Fletcher, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
All right, we're now going to move to our first agenda item 3, options to update regulations for renewable energy projects in the unincorporated area, including battery storage. I will turn it over to staff for a presentation.
Good morning, Chair Fletcher and supervisors. I'm Lynette Tessitore with Planning and Development Services, and with me is Scott Chrisman, Rami Tully, Kathleen Flannery, and Randall Showbloom. Today, we will present options to realize renewable energy projects in the unincorporated area. On February 10th, the board directed staff to complete permit process improvements and expand the design review checklist process for renewable energy projects. The board also directed staff to return after additional stakeholder engagement with further analysis of a renewable energy zoning ordinance update and for staff to explore opportunities for distributed energy generation and community benefit agreements. We will present information on all these topics. Over the past several months, staff has held over 30 stakeholder interviews with a variety of groups, and here's some of what we've heard from the community. Community planning and sponsor groups shared their concerns about the need for decommissioning renewable energy facilities, focusing development in urban areas, and protecting against fires and hazardous material releases. Environmental groups support renewable energy projects with an interest in distributed energy resources such as rooftop solar. Industry members discussed the benefits of siting battery storage near electrical substations and permitting process improvement opportunities. Labor groups support process improvements, but expressed hesitancy in streamlining projects, emphasizing the importance of environmental and community review. And utility groups discussed the renewable energy goals and objectives. This input helped inform development of a zoning ordinance update that streamlines battery energy storage projects in light industrial zones. Several California agencies prepared a roadmap to achieve 100% renewable energy by 2045, of which solar and battery storage make up 84% of the new resources needed. This data is based on a statewide model. Other renewable energy technologies were considered, but they make up a small minority of the expected new resources, and many are outside of the county's land use authority. As such, they would not benefit from a zoning ordinance update. Solar, which is the largest percentage of new resources needed, can be divided into two types: large-scale and customer solar. Large-scale solar is where solar panels generate power for supplying the grid. As of 2020, San Diego County, both incorporated and unincorporated areas, contained only 1% of California's large-scale solar production capacity. Neighboring counties of Riverside, San Bernardino, Los Angeles, and Imperial collectively accounted for 43% of the state's production capacity. Labor stakeholders and environmental stakeholders expressed hesitancy in streamlining large-scale projects because of the importance of robust environmental review and community input. Environmental stakeholders would prefer to focus incentivizing efforts on customer solar projects like rooftop solar that do not disturb native land. Consequently, zoning ordinance updates to further streamline large-scale solar is not part of staff's recommendation. Customer solar is where electricity is generated and used on site. For these projects, the county has already taken numerous steps to incentivize and streamline the process, including fee waivers, an online permit process, and our Solar Ready ordinance. For these reasons, zoning ordinance updates to further incentivize customer solar are not part of staff's recommendation. However, there are other opportunities outside of a zoning ordinance update that the county could undertake to incentivize customer solar. There are programs the county could promote as a member of the San Diego Community Power Community, or SDCP. SDCP is a locally controlled community choice energy program that purchases power on behalf of customers. The electricity is still delivered by SDG&E, but SDCP determines the source of the electricity, which gives SDCP the ability to purchase more renewable energy. SDCP has a net energy metering program that compensates residents for energy produced on their rooftop systems. To incentivize customer installations, SDCP's program compensates property owners at greater rates than SDG&E. The county, as a member of SDCP, can look to enhance this program and further incentivize customer solar. Community solar allows multiple customers to share part of a larger off-site solar system. Staff reviewed one local program where CCE is seeking to partner with local municipalities and developers to create a new community solar in underserved communities. The local municipalities will work with the communities to identify project locations and partner with the CCE on community outreach. Subscribing customers will receive a 20% discount on their monthly utility bill. Both opportunities represent ways the county can help incentivize customer solar by participating and partnering with San Diego Community Power.
Staff has identified an improvement to the zoning ordinance that could be made for battery storage facilities. Battery storage is to electricity what the refrigerator is to food. It preserves electricity for later use. Battery storage can reduce the need for natural gas plants by providing electricity during the evening when demand is highest. It can also absorb fluctuations in energy from variable sources, such as solar and wind. Battery storage can enable high levels of renewable energy integration and is expected to be a critical component in achieving 100% renewable energy. Demand for standalone battery storage projects in the unincorporated area is yet to be determined. Though the state's report identified a large need for battery storage statewide, it did not specify where within California battery storage facilities must be constructed. SDG&E and local CCEs intend to install 705 megawatts by 2030, but these projects would likely either be exempt from the county zoning ordinance or be paired with larger solar projects. Private entities may develop up to 600 megawatts in East County within the next few years, but these projects may be outside of the unincorporated area or may be retrofits to existing solar or wind projects. In many of these cases, the battery projects would not benefit from a zoning ordinance update. Given that the demand for standalone battery storage projects in the unincorporated area is yet to be determined, staff is recommending a moderate change to the zoning ordinance. Staff's recommendation is to change the permit type for battery storage facilities from a minor use permit to a site plan in 2 industrial zones, Basic Industrial M50 and Limited Impact Industrial M52. An example of a business permitted in an M50 zone would be a recycling processing facility. An example of a business permitted in an M52 zone would be a personal storage warehouse. M50 and M52 are the only 2 industrial zones that currently require more than a building permit for battery storage projects. Additionally, M52 is the industrial zone that is most common near electrical substations, which is where the industry prefers to locate battery storage facilities. This update would reduce permitting time for some applicants by 2 to 4 months because a site plan does not require a public hearing for approval and is approved by the Director of Planning and Development Services. To address community stakeholder concerns about environmental impacts, the zoning ordinance update will specify that battery storage projects must comply with county decommissioning requirements. These requirements can include a preparation of a decommissioning plan that ensures environmental protection, recycling of project components, and secured agreements to guarantee removal of the facilities upon completion of their service life. The requirements can also include preparation of a hazardous materials business plan and fire protection plan. Additional options for board consideration are discussed on the next slide. Staff recommends this work be referred to next fiscal year's budget and that work begin upon receipt of funding on July 1st, 2022. This update would likely require a lower level of environmental review, such as an addendum to the existing General Plan Environmental Impact Report, or EIR, and would be completed in approximately 12 months. Option 2B simply expedites the staff's recommendation so that work begins immediately. This option would be a standalone effort that would be complete within the next 12 months and require funding of $195,000 to cover staff and consultant costs. Option 2C would make battery storage a permitted use in M50 and M52 zones. This update would likely require a medium level of environmental review, such as preparing a supplement to the General Plan EIR. It would cost $640,000 and take approximately 2 years to complete. However, 84% of parcels near a substation are subject to an additional zoning ordinance feature called a special area designator, and the benefits of this option would likely be negated by the need to undertake a discretionary site plan to satisfy the special area designator requirement. Option 2D would streamline battery storage projects to the greatest extent possible in all zones, including residential, commercial, and agricultural. This option would likely require the highest level of environmental review, which is preparing a subsequent EIR to the General Plan EIR. This option would cost $1.12 million and 1 full-time employee and take approximately 2 to 3 years to complete. Since demand for large-scale battery storage is yet to be determined, staff does not recommend making such a large investment at this time. Per the board's February 10th direction, staff also researched mechanisms that benefit communities by improving conditions where large-scale renewable energy projects are located, such as community benefit agreements and local hire provisions. A community benefit agreement, or CBA, is an arrangement where developers attempt to gain public support for their project by incorporating local benefits into the project. Staff is currently working with stakeholders on a separate item for community benefit agreements and will return for board consideration in the near future. Staff reviewed local hire provisions, which are typically provisions included in construction contracts to improve local employment opportunities for members of the community where the facility is being constructed. Federal law largely prohibits the county from creating resident preferences because they would interfere with non-residents' ability to work and could impose burdens on interstate commerce. This would largely prohibit the county from mandating private parties enter into local hire provisions. However, when it comes to the county's or SDCP's own construction contracts, either could include a local hire provision as permitted by state law. State law currently allows for a local small business preference for local contractors to compete effectively for public contracts, and the county could develop a policy that utilizes this provision. Yesterday, we received comments from the California Unions for Reliable Energy, or CURE, suggesting the county add staff as opposed to making regulatory updates to help expedite renewable energy projects through the land development process. Staff can explore this option in coordination with County Fire Authority, Department of Public Works, and the Department of Environmental Health and Quality. CURE also suggested that the county link eligibility for a priority review to projects that provided community benefits as an option for a CBA program, which staff can also explore. Utilizing a site plan instead of a minor use permit eliminates a noticed public hearing. While notices are not required for a site plan, it is PDS's policy to provide notices to surrounding property owners. The board could direct staff to memorialize noticing site plans for all renewable energy projects as part of a more formalized procedure. Another result of a site plan is that only community members who own property within 300 feet of the project have the right to appeal the director's determination to approve a site plan. Others must request permission from the Planning Commission to appeal the director's determination. However, if the person's request is denied by the Planning Commission, they would still be able to appeal the project's environmental determination to the board. In summary, staff recommends that the board find that today's report and the options presented are exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. Direct staff to prepare a zoning ordinance amendment to streamline the permit process for battery energy storage projects by changing the permit type from a minor use permit to a site plan in basic industrial M50 and limited impact industrial M52 zones, which will save applicants 2 to 4 months of time, and require decommissioning plans for battery storage projects, and include this work as part of the upcoming zoning ordinance cleanup project beginning in FY 2022-23 and refer costs to the 2022-23 budget. This concludes staff's presentation. We are available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Let's go to our public speakers, and then we'll come back to the board for discussion.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 9 total requests to speak, 5 individuals in person, and 4 requesting to speak by phone. I will also note for the record that we did not receive any e-comments on this item. We will now hear from the in-person speakers. As your name is called, please come forward and stand against the east wall under the murals until it is your time to speak. I would like to invite forward the following individuals: Jim Whalen, Katie Meyer, Gretchen Newsom, Christina Marquez, and Audra. You will have 2 minutes to address the board. Please begin by stating your name for the record.
Good morning, Chair Fletcher and members of the board. Jim Whalen, J. Whalen Associates, 2851 Camino del Rio. I'm here mostly to talk about batteries. All of our projects, and I think most of you know we work on the solar, mostly solar in the backcountry. All of our projects have batteries. The ones that didn't have batteries when they were originally approved are going back to add them. And the reason is pretty straightforward, because from 4 to 9 is when you need the power, and that's when the sun isn't shining. So staff has it right with the recommendation. I think it's modest moving forward, and it's a good idea. And I want to spotlight that we support the efforts of the Boulevard Planning Group to reduce the effects of renewables on the community. And I'll note that we do community benefit agreements voluntarily. It's very important that the community at least feels some benefit from it. And as a practical matter, staff also has it right. When we do a major use permit, we add batteries into the major use permit. So this particular action you're doing right now doesn't particularly assist in rolling out solar at the level we want. And I think the real issue we need to figure out is why is it that was only 1% of the state's solar is here? What's the reason? Is it a confluence of factors? We have environmental issues here more than other counties, perhaps. I think staff goes as quickly as they can to get us through. But remember, when we come in front of you with a major use permit, we probably have 12 studies that support that, and each one of those has to link with the other. And I'm not sure, I usually like to come to you with answers, but I'm not sure I have any here right now. And I'll keep in front of you going forward, and maybe there will be some process improvements, but I just want to thank you for basically staying the course. We'll be coming forward with a very large project pretty soon, and we're planning it with the Boulevard Planning Group. We'll see how it goes. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Supervisors. Christina Marquez. I'm with the IBEW 569 Environmental Organizer. I'm here today to urge the Board of Supervisors to vote no on all the staff recommendations in item 3. We are concerned that the change to site plan review will limit the public's opportunity to participate and understand the full extent of the impacts of these battery storage projects. Eliminating the opportunity for meaningful public review and input in the approval of large energy storage system projects is also the wrong policy because energy storage systems are complicated and technology is rapidly evolving. We're making sure our electricians and apprentices are trained and ready, but we don't know what type of projects are going to be proposed in the future. It just doesn't make sense for the county to push these projects through the approval process without the opportunity for the public to engage and be aware of these projects. The staff report says that a site review permit will provide opportunity for community input, but there is no prior notice of the planning director's approval of the site plan, no opportunity for public hearing, and no opportunity for appeal. This is not meaningful opportunity for community input. The proposal should also provide community benefits such as local hire provisions or commitments to use the skilled and trained workforce. The county should go back to the drawing board and address the issue of review taking so long. Let's add staff resources instead of eliminating the public's right to notice and participation. Thank you.
Thank you. Gretchen Newsom again on behalf of IBW 569 or 3600 Union Electricians and Power Professionals. As Christina mentioned and encouraged, we urge the board to not adopt the streamlining proposals as laid out. And there is a better way for the county to decrease processing time. When this issue came up earlier this year, we were told that the actual problem with developing large renewable energy projects and energy storage projects was that it was taking an extremely long time for these applications to be reviewed and processed by staff. We hope we get some more resources for staff. We did not hear any evidence that providing a public notice and an opportunity to comment on these projects was the reason for this delay. Yet today you're being asked to approve streamlining proposals that severely limits public participation in the approval process. As proposed, the shift to the site plan review for battery storage projects will make it nearly impossible for the public to know that a battery storage project may be approved by the planning director. There is no notice requirement before the decision is made. There is no public hearing, and there is no opportunity to participate in the decision. The only opportunity for public input is to appeal after the fact, but there is no right to have that appeal heard unless you reside within 300 feet of the project. We should absolutely be bold in implementing climate action, but with the public and with engaging our communities. The county should create an expedited priority review and approval process as an option for all renewable energy projects, including battery storage projects, in return for local benefit commitments like local hiring goals and commitments to use a skilled and trained workforce, while also keeping the public notification and including the opportunity for public comment before the decision is made. And also the appeal process should be allowed for the entire public and not those that are just neighboring the project. We ask for staff to be directed to investigate the creation of such a priority approval process that is linked to community benefits and maintains public notification and environmental review. Thank you.
Hello, good morning, board. My name is Katie. I'm with San Diego 350. I want to thank the county for moving forward in investing in clean energy. Right now, we are facing a climate emergency. We are already experiencing extreme weather, the worst drought in a century, deadly heat waves, and this is just the beginning of a laundry list of consequences for not acting sooner. I think it is really important that we have a multifaceted approach in clean energy, that we continue to support rooftop solar and other renewable energies. And I just want to emphasize the urgency of this crisis and that we do something about it. Thank you.
Audra, what we need to do is something about HARP and the fact that they're keeping us in a drought, but whatever. And you want 100% clean energy. Is that even possible? like 100%? Like you want 100% of people to be vaccinated? That'll never be possible, because I know I won't. So I mean, is it possible to have 100% clean energy when you're using toxic batteries and you talk about wanting to create space with land and like more space, but all this is doing is putting big old, batteries on the land that are not pleasant to look at, and they're probably not quiet. And I mean, you want to hear people's input, but I mean, people came from Hukumba one day to tell you they didn't want solar panel in their town that's going to affect them, that they don't even get to benefit from the energy. And I mean, you just threw money at them. Here's a few $1 million. When that project stands to make probably trillions of dollars, you could give each one of those 500 people in that town $1 million and it wouldn't break anybody's bank. But like, I mean, the things that you're doing aren't actually it's like you have counteractual like things, like we want to create space, but we're going to take up all the space and put in these like crazy batteries. I mean, that doesn't make sense to me, especially if they're toxic and you're talking about making sure the environment issues are avoided when the facility reaches the end of use. So I mean, when the batteries are toxic, it's just like the nuclear plant and stuff like that. You got to move it somewhere else to then again move it somewhere else. So I mean, it doesn't really make sense. And I mean, it's impossible to have 100% clean energy. Are you going to get rid of all the cars? I mean, in 15 years that run on gas? Are you going to, like get rid of all the gas stations?
Thank you. Now we will hear from those that requested to speak by phone. We will be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of their phone number. You will hear a notification that your call has been unmuted. You will then need to press *6 to unmute your phone. Please begin by stating your name for the record. I would also like to remind callers that they should mute their TV and live video stream before they begin speaking. Ann, would you please identify the first caller?
Our first caller is 8902. 8902, please press *6 to unmute.
Good morning, Chairman Fletcher, Vice Chair Vargas, and Supervisors. My name is Jason Anderson. I'm speaking today on behalf of Cleantech San Diego. Cleantech San Diego is a business organization that positions the greater San Diego region as a global leader in the clean tech economy. We appreciate the county's efforts to streamline the permitting of renewable energy projects and support the majority of the proposed changes being considered, but do have some concerns with the decommissioning requirements. To my knowledge, energy projects are the only or one of a few types of developments that are required to secure costs for decommissioning as part of the approval process. While this may make sense for larger renewable energy generation projects, we do not think it makes sense for all battery storage projects. Standalone battery storage projects, as staff alluded to, are primarily being developed in industrial and commercial areas and are being developed with a limited footprint. By requiring these types of projects to secure the cost for decommissioning, the county is unduly burdening these facilities, ultimately increasing costs and potentially making the county a less desirable place to develop battery storage projects. Furthermore, by requiring the removal of all energy facilities as part of the decommissioning process, the county is potentially creating issues for substations that are built on site and may not be removable because they become part of the electric grid once built. I appreciate the county staff reaching out to stakeholders, but unfortunately, in our opinion, most of the stakeholders the staff met with do not have experience building, owning, or operating battery storage systems. It is our recommendation that as you move forward and before you adopt any decommissioning requirements, county staff develop the definitions and requirements in consultation with battery storage stakeholders. Again, thank you for your efforts to streamline renewable energy projects. As the region moves forward with meeting our renewable energy goals, it is more important now than ever that we get this right. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is 1148. 1148. If you'd like to speak on this item, please press *6 to unmute. 1148. If you'd like to speak on this item.
Hi, board and everybody there. My name is Abrego. I was there yesterday, and it's not quite that scary. I think it's a cop-out for Tara to go home early or whatever it is she wants to do in order not to be there. Anyway, for the Tacoma Valley people, they're the Kumeyaay people, and they did go there And I know for a fact that they didn't want these projects because that's exactly what they would say. They would say that they didn't want this. They won't want, like, they've been here for thousands of years, and we're just making them and pushing them over. And those truly that want to live here for thousands of years, you should get some advice from them, because that's what they said. They said that America would die from within, and it's these instructions, this basics of humanity that we've forgotten. So I would advise for reach out to the community and see what they need, because this isn't working. It's really not working. I'd rather also, with the constitutional input, that's the first people that use, the constitutional rights that were reached out to were the First Nations people. And because of that, because they knew the basic instructions, and evidently we've forgotten all about humanity. I'd rather be in that chamber, smell all that freedom and liberty breath any day than any kind of hateful Newsom air. So thank you.
Chair Fletcher, that concludes public testimony on this item.
Thank you. Thank you for the discussion and the engagement today. I think we've got a couple issues we have to work through. One is we've got a very aggressive goal as it relates to renewable energy, trying to get to 100% renewable energy by 2030. It is an aggressive goal, and we're trying to do a lot of things to try and tackle that. I do think that a couple points were made today that were really good and worthy of our board's consideration. One is just the battery alone, again, will not help us with these large-scale projects that have a battery component, because as was pointed out by our first speaker, those will go through the traditional way we're doing. So this would have a smaller impact on a smaller number of items, and we certainly have more work to do, as pointed out on some of those larger projects, for how we can get them done and get them moved. The second thing is I think we have our community benefits proposal coming back in December. And I think that'll be a very important discussion for this board to have around community benefits agreements for all of these renewable projects moving forward. And that discussion is overlapping with this, but also much broader than that. And I think that discussion is going to inform a broader approach to renewable projects across our county moving forward. And I think that'll be a good discussion we have in December, which will shape it. The other thing that I think is, as we consider what we want to do today, it makes all the sense in the world that we need to ask our staff to evaluate their staffing. How do we have proper and adequate staffing to make sure that folks can get through the permit process in a meaningful way? As we shift and say we're going to do exponentially more renewable projects, then we also got to shift a little bit to provide some more resources to process those and make sure that we are adequately staffed and equipped in our staffing levels and the expertise to be able to help facilitate things through this. And then the last one is a discussion around what we're being asked to consider today is not adopting any of these options. It's directing staff to prepare the consideration for an ordinance and come back to us in the future with it. And so we could take any one of these options. We could also take one of these options and add a component around public comment and public appeal process, have that drafted as well, and have multiple options for an ordinance come back to us at some point in the future. Again, probably best after we've had our December discussion around community benefits agreements. So just a number of things for us to consider as we move forward. I'll just put a motion just to get us going, but we're certainly open to discussion around it. I would move that we would adopt recommendations 1, just the standard language on that, and that we would ask staff to bring back both 2A as drafted, but also bring back 2A, which maintains a provision for public comment and an appeals process for the entirety of San Diego County. That would be an option we consider when it comes back. And I would also encourage between now and when that comes back that we continue to work with stakeholders around the decommissioning plans for how we might better align those or better equip those to go forward. And also to add a recommendation that we ask staff to return perhaps as early as December if possible with recommendations around staffing and the potential need for more staffing. So it would be a motion to do one 2A, but also include a 2A version that includes the notice plans for public comment and appeal process, and then adding a recommendation 3, asking staff to come back in December with an evaluation of their potential staffing needs to fully staff our renewable energy division. And then note separate from that, we will talk about CBAs in December. So that would be a motion just to get us going, if there is a second. Okay, let's go to we'll go to Supervisor Desmond.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with the moving ahead forward with 2A, and actually I want to thank staff for all of your input and the presentation today. Went kind of quick for me on the M50 and then the M52. I think you gave a couple of examples of what M50 and M52 was. Could you reiterate what M50 is and the types of projects that can go in there and the M52?
Supervisor, through the chair, an example of a business permitted in an M50 zone would be a recycling processing facility. An example of a business permitted in an M52 zone would be a personal storage warehouse.
Okay, so M50 and M52 are very limited. You know, there's not a lot in there, I guess, as sites to go for this battery storage. And I really think battery storage is kind of the missing link here with it. We've got the renewable energy. You know, the power lines, you know, with the Sunrise power lines are very controversial, is how do we get that energy to the residents that most of us live on the coast or coastal areas. But the battery backup, I think, is really, you know, it's kind of hindering our efforts in going towards more renewable energies. I'm not sure that I agree with the appeal process that it can go countywide. I do like the fact that, you know, there is a process in place, I guess, for people within 300 feet. And this is in the unincorporated areas. What my concern is that the appeal process goes countywide. Any entity who doesn't even live anywhere near around that or can go ahead and appeal it and basically hold up the project and hold it up for a long time. You know, maybe extending the 300 feet to 500 feet or something maybe a little larger, but to, you know, I've seen this when you have a countywide vote where people are voting on a project that's not anywhere near them, or you know, if the project's in North County and people in Hucumba and Chula Vista and other places, and vice versa, when you know, people voting on countywide things or having input countywide sometimes can be a detriment, I think, to what we're trying to accomplish. And I've always been, you know, the CCAs hasn't been my favorite, but as far as, you know, renewable energy, I've been on board and I want to make sure we do it. I don't want to hold it up forever either. So I do, you know, I agree with moving forward with 2A. I would just like to see the appeal process, instead of going countywide, we're going from 300 feet to the entire county. If we could maybe scale that down or have a couple different options to include the public input and make sure we have it, but not countywide. I think is too far of a stretch, and I think it's going to hold these types of good projects up that I don't think is beneficial. So that's my input on that.
Fair point taken on that. I think we're going to get a couple options that come back, and then when they come back, then we can get into the parameters on. We're not making a final decision, but you know, bringing back 2A plus an additional one, and then we can take that up.
I just want to make sure it's scalable to where it's located. Thanks.
Supervisor Anderson.
Some of the comments I have are not what we're talking about today, but they wrap around with it. So we know with different battery technologies, there's been a lot of improvements as far as fire suppression and protecting folks. In my district, in some of the industrial areas, we have places of worship, we have large employers. I know that that's not M50 or 52, but I think that as we're thinking about this, we have to take that into consideration. But one of the items that we haven't really discussed, and that's while these batteries are well prepared for a cell fire, I'd like to know how they're prepared for a wildfire. And we're not talking about M50 or M52, but as we're going out and having them next to solar projects, you know, when we think of locating next to Boulevard, next to Potrero, next to any of these communities, they have a population, and we need to make sure that the protection is there. So perhaps if, staff, when they come back, they could address some of that moving forward. The other part, or if they want to address it today, that's fine too. The other part is, I agree with what's been said about public comment and not wanting to shut the projects down. But perhaps the noticing could be more of a timeline of notice so that there's more time on the notice to give people ample, not necessarily noticing Del Mar and San Ysidro for a project in Jocumba, or Boulevard, but giving people enough time. Sadly, too often people come to my office after a decision's been made because that's the first they've heard of it. And I just want to make sure that the timeline allows for that input. And then when we're looking at the public benefits package, the way I understand it is we're thinking in terms of large energy projects. We're not talking about every project that comes along. Most every project in my district has a community benefit that's negotiated on a private level, that they've worked with the community to get them what they want. But when you're looking at tiny towns, tiny communities, they're not prepared to negotiate in a way that's meaningful to their community. And in many instances, they don't want the project, period. And the person with the project has every right to build the project. And so what we're really trying to do is, I understand it, I just want to get clarity.
That'll be next month, but that'll be in December. Community benefits agreement will be a separate discussion in December.
But staff knows that we're talking about large energy projects, not...
That'll be a discussion that gets agendized for December.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Those are my points.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Wasserman.
I think my colleague already seconded your motion, which I'm happy to support as well, with just the clarification that we're asking that there be a robust community input process on that second, what'd you call it? 2A B minus 2. Yeah, 2A plus. But if that's not, if I need to modify his amendment or just clarify with comments that asking that not just that the amendment comes back with a community consultation process at the end, but that you engage in one in order to develop that that option. So.
Yep. Okay. Great. So we've got a motion by myself, seconded by Vice Chair Vargas, to approve recommendation 1, approve recommendation 2A, approve recommendation 2A plus, which would be to bring back an ordinance which would also include public comment and appeals process across the county, develop those ordinances, bring those back to the board, and then a recommendation number 3, which would be to return to the board with staffing options or potential needs to meet the need of renewable projects. And then a recommendation number 4 would be a direction to continue to work with stakeholders on decommissioning plans as it relates to our overall development of battery storage. So it would essentially be those components and pieces. And again, this will come back in the future. Next month, we'll come back, work on community benefits agreement, and then we'll continue working on many of these other issues that we face. So with that, we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We're going to move to agenda item number 5. Agenda item number 5 is an item brought forward by my office around securing entertainment worker safety at county facilities. The County of San Diego has taken important strides to enhance the well-being of both our workers and the safety of our public. And today's policy to help ensure the safety and security of entertainment workers and the public who visits our facilities having these events, I believe is a part of this effort. Earlier this year, we created the Office of Labor Standards to help lift up and provide much needed protection for our most vulnerable. And we want to make sure that we are holding ourselves to appropriate safety standards, particularly when we have very large and complex operations taking place on county land. The creation and operation of many entertainment events involve complex audiovisual equipment, complex electrical systems. Rigging of large equipment can be dangerous. Safety programs have been developed to ensure that employees have the knowledge and training to avoid an accident, both protecting employees, performers, and protecting those who visit our venues. There have been a few instances recently that have highlighted the importance of prioritizing these safety efforts, including locally here in San Diego. We've also seen real tragic circumstances in entertainment venues recently where some of the highest safety standards were not adhered to, where folks were not properly trained, where proper protocols were not put in place. So what this policy does is there's two safety standards that are considered to be best practices with the entertainment industry, and today's action recommends the County of San Diego adopt these two standards for any events that involve complex equipment. Today's action would direct the Chief Administrative Officer to require that entertainment employees, vendors, and subcontractors at County of San Diego facilities are certified under the Entertainment Technician Certification Program, ETCP, and the Occupational Health and Safety Administration's OSHA 10-hour awareness course. The Entertainment Technician Certification Program is the industry standard certification for entertainment riggers in both the arena and theater settings, as well as entertainment electricians and portable power technicians. These are the professions in the entertainment industry that pose the most hazard to workers, performers, and audience, and as such, verification of skills and knowledge is appropriate for some of these large-scale complex events that are taking place on our land. This will creates a complete program that has strenuous requirements, rigorous exam designed to demonstrate proficiency in the fields of entertainment rigging and electricians. OSHA 10 is an occupational health and safety administrator's 10-hour awareness course just designed to provide workers a general awareness of workplace safety, not specific to entertainment workers. While any industry would benefit from a greater awareness of hazard, the entertainment industry, which relies on portable systems in a dynamic environment, requires many individuals as possible to be aware of safety hazards that could impact those systems. I want to offer a few clarifications of the board letter that will help address some of the feedback I've received, and I want to thank in particular a lot of leaders in the entertainment and events industry who host these events for the discussions we've had and the overall support around what we're doing. But these standards would just apply to outdoor special events. This includes the temporary installation or operation of portable mechanical and static rigging for overhead suspension of portable audiovisual equipment, including audio, video, lighting, backdrops, scenery, and other effects. And the electrical certification would apply for temporary entertainment power sources like large generators of 100 or 200 amps. At least one of the people doing the work would need to have the ETCP electrical certification. That certified worker would then run camlock or feeder cables to several power distribution points and make sure that power is distributed evenly and safely among the endpoints. This would be included as a requirement in the reservation and event agreement, be implemented as a self-certification program. This would not be for small mom and pop operations that don't have a big stage or just ground supported AV. We are talking about our larger operations, our larger, more complex things that are taking place. So again, thank you to the folks in the entertainment industry for the engagement and discussion. Thank you for folks who brought forward this, who work on worker safety issues on a daily basis. I think this is a step we can take again to protect the workers, the visitors, and the performers at our venues. And with that, I would make a motion to approve the recommendations in agenda item number 5. All right, let's call forward our speakers, and then we'll come back.
Chair Fletcher, just to make a clarification that your motion includes the conforming changes to the resolution that's consistent with your guidance, your clarification.
Yep, thank you, Council. Let's hear from the speakers.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 12 total requests to speak today, 9 individuals in person and 3 individuals requesting to speak by phone. I will also note for the record that we did receive 1 e-comment in opposition for this item. We will now hear from the in-person speakers. I will begin by calling the first 5. As your name is called, please come forward and stand against the east wall under the murals until it is your turn to speak. I would like to invite forward Jessica Van Ness, Ryan Morse, Juan Perez, Nicholas Geegan, and Richard Disbrow. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board, and if you could start by stating your name for the audio record.
Good morning. My name is Juan Perez. I'm a member at IATSE Local 122, the union that represents workers in the event industry. I am here in support of the area safety standards for setting up events. Setting up events can be extremely dangerous, as you mentioned earlier, Chair. These workers rig up beautiful structures and speakers and lights at concerts, but can be deadly if not rigged right. These workers work on and around electricity that powers these events, but can fry a person to death if not worked properly. Safety is important whether you work to set up stages, work in grocery stores, or brew coffee at Starbucks. Support this item because our lives literally depend on it. And if you're looking at it through like a conservatively, fiscally responsible perspective, if a worker gets injured or something on the job, what is that worker gonna do? Disability, workers' comp, you name it, right? Now that person is laying at home, collecting money, free money, right? Taxpayer stuff. So please support this. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Nick Egan. I'm here representing IATSE Local 122. Again, I want to stress the importance of approving and supporting safety standards for stagehands here in San Diego, especially the outdoors. Electrical, for me personally, has been something that I've seen has been a big problem, being unsafe with different techs, getting shocked, being hurt. And it's very important for especially young techs who don't have any experience with electrical to get the training and the permits that they need to be able to learn how to, do the job properly. So please do support this. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jessica Vanis. I'm a member with IATSE Local 122. Safety regulations on the worksite are extremely important. Requiring OSHA 10 and ETCP certificates means that everyone on the job site will be safer while working in a fast-paced environment. It greatly lessens injuries as small as falls and as great as death. With little to no injuries, that means less people out of work and on disability. A broken wrist can keep one of us out of work for 3 months, relying on disability because we have no light-duty jobs. Electrocution or a fall from a great height can have a much longer healing process, if not death. As the film project Rust showed us, death on a job site is terrible, even more so without proper safety regulations. We work hard every day on every job to have no injuries, and these safety regulations will only compound that work. If we take shortcuts on safety at the job site, it can lead to similar injuries to the public who patron these events, and no one wants that.
Good morning. My name is Ryan Morse. I'm with IATSE Local 122. I really want to push for the safety standards to be put into effect. Our job is very dangerous in a multitude of ways. We have a lot of heavy machinery, high current electrical, rigging overhead, and just many other factors like that. So safety standards are of great benefit to all the workers, especially, but also visitors, everything like that. And of course, a job is not worth dying for, and we don't want employers coming in just trying to save a buck, hiring, less qualified workers and putting everyone's lives at risk. Thank you.
As the next individual comes up, I'd like to call the remaining in-person speakers. If you could please come line up under the murals. Robert Morales, Alan Ono, Pete, and Audra.
Perfect. Thank you. My name is Richard Disbrow. I'd like to thank Chair Fletcher and the other supervisors today for hearing us out. I'm the International Alliance Theatrical Stage Employees Local 122 Business Manager, and I'm also an Executive Board Member for the San Diego and Imperial's Labor Council. I appreciate you taking up the certification for safety standards in entertainment. Most of you probably don't ever hear about any incidents because you only hear about it when it's bad. For example, a rigger falling at Coachella Valley to his death, unfortunate San Diego individual who wasn't certified in 20 years in the business. And why we want to bring these standards forward is ETCP certification isn't just a once-time certification. It's actually ongoing. You have to recertify it throughout your entire career to make sure you're up on safety standards, to make sure you're up on new technologies and new ways of doing things, because that's where mistakes happen. When you think that you've been in the industry for 20 years and you think you can cut a corner here and there, these standards allow you to stay on top of regulation and what's going on. OSHA 10 certification is a very widely accepted form of certification in every industry. And if you've never been on the entertainment industry job site, it is a very dangerous construction site. There's very heavy equipment. There's huge amounts of power. And there's generally a large amount of people because there's such a short amount of time to put the event on. So I really encourage everyone today to vote in favor of this, because I'd rather us be known for putting on amazing events than a headline of someone dying at one of our spaces. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Good morning, supervisors. My name is Robert Morales. I'm also a member and executive board member of IATSE, Local 122. First, I want to start off with saying thank you, supervisors, for representing your districts. I know it's a hard job. As I was stating, I'm an executive board member, but by doing that and saying safety comes first for us, always on the job site, not only for our employees, but for our guests. I work in the bigger magnitude of bigger shows, and the thing that we miss most is these shows come in and out in a quick time manner. So that's why safety can't be forgotten. We're lucky that in California, we have a high standard by Cal OSHA. So by all of our techs being certified with Cal OSHA, it creates that standard of high excellence, especially here in San Diego. We aim to please with our trades and convention. So one more time, I ask for a yes vote for safety and standards in San Diego. Thank you, guys.
Hi, my name is Alan Ono. I wanted to talk to you all today about safety standards. I worked as a stagehand with the IATSE 122, and working with this kind of environment raised my concern of our current safety standards. Even the other day, we were pushing heavy equipment, which was on a wheel, up the hill on the truck, and I witnessed one of my coworkers trip halfway up the hill. Luckily, he left with a bruise, but thinking about what could have been worse additionally strengthened my concern of the safety. It said we need better and updated safety standards and prevent any possible danger we can avoid. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Pete Makarushka. I'm with IATSE 122. I'm sorry. I'm not used to talking in front of people. I work backstage, and so I get to see a lot of the safety issues that are concerns. I'd like to point out that both the OSHA 10 and ETCP are available to everybody. So we're not talking about an exclusion of any workforce. We're allowing everybody to step forward and be safe on the work site, which then allows for the attendees to be safe. Thank you. Have a good day.
Audra, so I guess it doesn't make sense why you would have people who shouldn't be doing that job working with equipment. Maybe they shouldn't be if they're not properly trained or whatnot. I mean, that in itself is a hazard. So, and you want to make more regulations, but I mean, why are you having, is it people that are with their own company coming in, they don't know what they're doing, or is it people that work with Parks and Recreation doing this work and they're not certified or even trained to do it? So it's leaving up safety hazards. But also in this, you're saying labor rights are intertwined with civil rights. That's a little bit weird to hear. And because our civil rights are being usurped all the time. And talking about this is not a good environment for people to come and speak to, that's a little bit weird because, I mean, people call in all the time and talk shit about me. I mean, but it doesn't keep me from coming in. We're not, I'm not talking about, like, here we go, Gretchen Newsom, how about that? Like, she's the one calling in saying bad things about me, and so do other people. But we've never said anything that isn't directed to anyone but you guys as far as our concerns that are going on in the county. So I don't know what you mean the environment isn't good for people who want to come in and say their piece, Tara, that you're getting calls because it's so, egregious for them, and they can't come in because we're like threatening them. I mean, nobody's ever threatened anybody. So for you guys to say that and you want to go down to 30 seconds, I mean, that you spoke longer than 30 seconds. That's not enough time to say anything. And you do that, and that will make the people even more upset.
We will now hear from those that requested to speak by phone. We will begin calling speakers by the last 4 digits of their phone number. You will hear a notification that your call has been unmuted. You will still need to press *6 to unmute your phone. Please state your name for the record, and I would also like to remind callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream. And could you please identify the first caller?
Our first caller is 4194. 4194. If you'd like to speak on this item, please press *6 to unmute.
Good morning, Chair Fletcher and Honorable Supervisors. My name is Sutomi Raj-Sigler, here on behalf of the 300,000 working families represented by the San Diego and Imperial Counties Labor Council. There are currently many events that take place on county property, including large festivals and concerts and other types of outdoor entertainment. And we must ensure that those jobs are good jobs, and that any other jobs that take place on county property, that ensuring that the laborer is local, compensated fairly, and of course, skilled and trained to do their jobs as safely as possible. Public safety should be of the highest priority to this board, and requiring that these large outdoor events that take place on county property are performed by individuals who are specifically trained to ensure the safety of not only themselves, but the performers and the attendees of these events does just that. So thank you for not waiting until someone actually dies on county property due to poor safety conditions to address this really serious concern. Maybe if the city of Indio would have done something like this, Chris Griffin would not have fell to his death in 2019 while rigging for Coachella, or Russell Bowery, who fell 31 feet and died 3 days later from an irreversible brain injury because he was working on a site with no safety guidelines, or Vicente Rodriguez, a 20-year-old kid who fell 37 feet to his death in Hollywood, who had no business high rigging because he lacked the training. At the time, he was actually working for Rhino Staging and Event Solutions, a company ubiquitously used throughout San Diego, and who happened to be poor employers who prioritize profit over the safety and well-being of their employees, and quite frankly, everyone around them. All of these deaths were preventable. So thank you for setting the standard for how the safety of the public should be maintained. We urge you to vote yes and hope other jurisdictions will follow your lead. Thank you.
Chair Fletcher, that concludes public comment for this item.
All right, thank you. We have a motion and a second. We'll go to Supervisor Anderson and then Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. So I'm on board with this. Of course, we're for public safety, but I have a lot of rural communities, and they've got some concerns. For example, the Mountain Empire Men's Club has the annual Pine Valley Days celebration, and they use an inflatable bouncy house, and they plug it into a generator. And I want to make sure that that's not what we're talking about. This is very, minor stuff that Kiwanis or Lions or somebody is sponsoring, or a women's club is sponsoring. And we also have some movies in public where they plug into a movie projector. But we're not talking about lights and stuff. I just want to make, you said it, but
large generators.
I don't want to have to field all the phone calls.
Large
we're not
generators,
asking specific.
100 or 200 amps. So that would be quite a bouncy.
Well,
so
we like to go
not there.
big in these counties.
But it is. I mean, on the one side, Supervisor, it's a good question. It is. We're talking about, installation or operation of portable mechanical stage rigging, overhead suspension, audio-visual, audio lights. We're thinking things we see down here with the big stages. And then the electrical certification, again, would be those large generators, not those individually ground.
I knew what you meant, but I just saved 50 phone calls to my office.
Thank you. Thank you. Supervisor Desmond.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know, this is a tough one for me because the events industry was one of the hardest hit by COVID shutdowns, and I kind of hate to see them, having more onus on them. But we're the leaser of the land. We lease the land to these events. And I think we should, I would assume we already have got provision in our leasing contracts that whoever it is, large scale, small scale, that we already require that the best safety practices already be in place. I'm afraid if we go down the path of saying, well, you have to have this certification or that certification, and the certifications change and we don't keep up with it. I don't know. I think the overall, I think it's best for us to keep the onus on the entity. We want to make sure they're safe and everything, but for us to say you have to have this certification, and if we leave out a certification, well, you expressed this certification but not that one, and somebody got hurt by this other certification that they could have possibly had. I just think this adds more government regulation and cost to this industry, and I definitely do want all the safety provisions in place. But I think as a government entity or as a landowner and the leaser of the land, that we require whoever they are, that they have to keep up, and the onus is on them to require them to have all the safety practices, all of the training, all the certifications that are required in place, instead of us saying you have to have this one or that one. So I'm not going to be supporting the item. I support safety in all efforts on anywhere, not just on county property, but I think it's in our best interest to make that and put the specific certifications on the person renting the land or bringing that show or putting that show on, instead of us saying you got to have this one or that one. So I'm not going to be supporting the item just because of that peculiarity.
Yeah,
Thanks.
fair enough, fair point. I think it'd be awfully hard for us to require someone to have the best certification and not say what that is. It would put an insurmountable burden on them to figure out how they would do it. And I think given we're the ones who issue the permits, it's appropriate for us to be the ones to issue the conditions. And as new certifications come online and there's better safety standards, then we can update what we require. But
So we're going
fair
to
enough.
have a department then to keep up on certifications and all the certifications that are required because the technology changes?
Kind of
I
what
just think that's a big
permitting
onus.
departments do. We kind of require what you got to do in order to get a permit. That's kind of a
Well-
standard. I mean, it'd be like having a land use department that keeps current on environmental regulations. Yeah, that's kind of what
So
we
we
do.
have to keep up on all these other industries' permitting and certifications.
We're the ones who issue the permits for these events. We're the one whose land it happens on. We're the ones who get
I
sued
get
if
that.
something goes wrong.
I get that, but not all the certifications required by their industry. But that's my point, is their industry certifications are different than the ones we have for our permit. We can just put the requirement is you got to have them all. I think in that way
you'd have
cover
it
us.
all. Okay, fair enough. We got a motion and a second. Please vote.
Chair Fletcher, that motion passes with Supervisor Desmond voting no, all other supervisors being present and voting aye.
All right, we're going to go to our final agenda item today, agenda item 6, an item brought forward by county staff around the San Diego River Park. We'll give them a moment to get settled, and then we will turn it over to staff for a presentation.
Okay, good morning, Chair Fletcher and members of the board. Today, we're pleased to present this item to begin the exploration of a potential long-term funding mechanism to help achieve the vision of the San Diego River Park. Joining me today are Crystal Benham, our Environmental Resources Group Manager, and Michelle Critchlow, Debt Finance Manager. As you know, the county is involved in a regional effort to preserve the San Diego River, which stretches 52 miles from the headwaters at Santa Isabel Preserve near Julian to its mouth at Ocean Beach. DPR collaborates with multiple jurisdictions along the river, as well as the San Diego River Conservancy and the River Park Foundation. Our joint efforts include acquisition, restoration, and public access improvements through an interconnected regional trail system. The planned San Diego River Trail is one of 9 regional trails identified in the county's Trail Master Plan. Earlier this year, the county convened a task force to identify priorities for future projects along the San Diego River and opportunities to implement those priorities. One of the challenges identified by the task force is the need to secure long-term funding for ongoing activities and future projects. Projects include future trail connections to close gaps in the San Diego River Trail, as well as open space protection and habitat enhancement. Today's proposed action will enable the county to hire a consultant to help assess various funding mechanisms and recommend strategies for long-term funding for board consideration. Today's recommendations are to find that the proposed project is exempt from CEQA and to establish appropriations for $500,000 for a competitive solicitation to assess long-term funding mechanisms for the San Diego River Park and return to the board within 270 days with options and recommendations for your board's consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to our public speakers.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 5 total requests to speak on this item, 2 individuals in person and 3 requesting to speak by phone. I will also note for the record that there were no e-comments received. We will begin with the in-person speakers. I would like to invite forward Alan and Audra to the podium. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board. Please start by stating your name for the record.
Oh, it's not, their clock's not turned on. Oh, thank you. Alan, thank you, Jim. You're right on point. I remember last year the events workers are all down there protesting. More regulations just going to kill it. Speaking of regulations and preservation of parkland, North Park, next to the water tower, there's a park there. Analogy, same thing. We want to preserve this parkland, and yet through Galvin Newsom's urban environment pushing more low-income housing, more congested housing, they're talking about chopping away part of the North Park next to that water tower for congested housing. Bear in mind, surrounding that North Park is all apartment buildings. That's the only parkland they have. Will this happen again with what we're doing with this, achieving the River Park? The same situation. Congested housing on government lands, in this case parks, is wrong. You're taking away parkland by doing that. So please look at that. Start pushing back the requirements, all the congested housing next to trolley station, all that, when you're actually affecting the parks. Thank you.
Audra, so you're going to spend $500 to retain a consultant to study long-term funding and opportunities. Who's that consultant going to be? To get $500,000, what, in 270 days? Is that like a firm or just one person that's going to be getting that? And you have a governing board of 17 members. Are those members that are selected by you guys that you want in there so that you can have them, you know, tell them what to do and they just do your bidding? Or do you allow people who are maybe outside of that scope into these governing boards? Probably not. Okay. Anyway, so I would just like to tell people there's a march that's going to be outside from 12 to 3, and we'll be going around downtown, and anybody who wants to fight for freedom and, you know, stand up for your civil rights, please come. But anyway, you guys wouldn't want to go because you like to usurp civil rights, which is very sad. I just hope that all the decisions that you're making you feel comfortable with, and that you can sleep at night, and that you know, care enough about your families that you could care enough about other people's families and what they have to deal with. And, you know, seek God, because he's the only, thing you should fear, because his wrath is not good.
We will now hear from those that requested to speak by phone. We will be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of their phone number. You will hear a notification that your call has been unmuted. You will then need to press *6 to unmute your phone. Please state your name for the audio record, and I would like to remind the callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. And could you please identify the first caller?
Our first caller is 1921. 1921, please press *6 to unmute.
Yes, my name is Mark Kennedy. I'm with Lakeside Land Company, 10108 Riverford Road in Lakeside. I am in favor of the action before the board, but I would respectfully suggest the board consider the following ideas. Please make the task force more transparent by having internet postings of the meetings, the agendas, and the minutes. Second, I think property owners should have a seat on the task force, given the fact that a majority of the trail gaps are on their land. Regarding the EFID, if you adopt one, please don't write checks you can't cash. Lakeside was promised a river park and trails when the county adopted a redevelopment plan in 1989. And when it was disbanded almost 25 years later, none of the tax increment went to a river park or any other infrastructure projects in our community. Lastly, I have mixed feelings about the new study. In 2000, I had 48 county-funded river, park, and trail studies scattered around my office dating back to 1978. Since then, the Berlin Wall has fallen. We've rebuilt the World Trade Center, but for some reason, we can't build a trail from Mission Bay to San Vicente. I'm cautiously optimistic that this board will prove that past is not prologue. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 7024. 7024. Please press star 6 to unmute.
Good morning, Supervisors. I'm Rob Hutzel, and I'm speaking today on behalf of the San Diego River Park Foundation. Our nonprofit was established in 2001 to work toward a better future for the San Diego River. Since our founding, we have grown from a few volunteers, and I was one of those, to a community of more than 40,000 people. The San Diego River Park Foundation is in strong support of item number 6. It's the right time for this action. The vision of the regional 52-mile-long San Diego River Park stretches from the mountains to the ocean. While much has been accomplished over the past 20 years, it's time to explore funding solutions to complete this vision. A completed regional San Diego River Park will open the outdoors for more people, improving access to nature and all of its health benefits. It will support celebrating the San Diego River, a cultural treasure. It will advance climate-smart strategies by healing the green lung that is the San Diego River ecosystem and providing more options for non-motorized regional multi-use paths and trails. We look forward to continuing to work with the county and other partners on this effort. Thank you, Chair Fletcher, for your incredible leadership moving this forward. We ask for the board's support. Thank you.
Chair Fletcher, that concludes public comment on this item.
Thank you. I want to thank Brian and the entire Parks team for this. There's been for a long time a lot of excitement around the notion of 52-mile interconnected watershed as recreational opportunities for our families. We love the outdoors. We love outdoor space. There are a lot of groups that work on this. You've got the San Diego River Conservancy, which Supervisor Anderson is the county's representative on, that works on this, a number of others, River Park Foundation and others. And I appreciate this proposal coming forward to have us go out and let's take a fresh look at what are the opportunities out there. I know earlier this year, in partnership with Supervisor Anderson, we made a considerable investment to acquire a large portion of land. So now let's think about how do we properly develop those trails and interconnected nature of that. How do we work with all the governing bodies along the way? You have multiple jurisdictions that have a piece of this part along the way. How can we go out and figure out what funding may be appropriate, what might work? And so to engage this process, to take a fresh look at what's out there, and then come back to us as a board, I think is a really good thing to do. And I'm pleased to make a motion to approve this item today, and excited to see it moving forward. So go to Supervisor Anderson.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. First of all, I want to thank my colleagues. That donation earlier this year was substantial. But most importantly, why it was so important is we gave the working capital to actually clean it up and make it usable. Buying land that's unusable makes no sense, but fixing it so that it's a gem in the community makes great sense. Now, having lived in East County for over 30 years, I can tell you there's a lot of business and property owners who believe in the vision, who have donated time, money, and more importantly, property along the way. And I want to make sure, I'm happy to support this, but I want to make sure that this new organization is reaching out to those communities, because we're looking for resources and we're looking for participation. It would be foolish to overlook people who have in the past supported the River Conservancy. And I thought that the caller's point, I'm sure we're going to do it, but I think I just need to reiterate it. We need to have a website where people have transparency, so those who this is important to aren't excluded from the process, but rather encouraged by the process. So I don't know if I need to do a friendly amendment, but I think it's really important
if the consultant process could include some public outreach to impacted communities around funding mechanisms, it would seem to be an appropriate thing.
Yes, Chair Fletcher, we would include that, and we will also include a project-specific website that offers that transparency and opportunity for feedback.
What I would like, I mean, I know that I'm getting picky and I don't mean to, but I think it needs to be perpetual outreach to the community, not just a one-time bite at the apple, because these things are fluid, and sometimes, someone asks me my opinion, and I don't have an opinion, and then it kind of, as I'm driving along, I think about it and I develop an opinion, and having an opportunity later, maybe a month later, to come back and offer some suggestions. We don't want to exclude good ideas. We don't want to exclude anybody who wants to help us. We want to get this done, and I think that the caller's points are spot on. I mean, we've torn down a wall, we've rebuilt a building, and yet we still don't have this done. So, Brian, thank you for your hard work and your team's hard work, and I'm happy to support it.
Great. We'll take that as a second.
Yes, you can.
And just so we're clear, we're not creating an organization. We're going out to engage some work around options. It's limited in duration, and then the recommendations will come back, and then we can consider what we want to do. But we can certainly do some public engagement as a part of that process and bringing something back. Okay, we've got a motion by myself, second by Supervisor Anderson, to approve the recommendations in this item. Please vote.
Chair Fletcher, that motion passes with all supervisors who are present and voting aye.
All right, thank you. Before we get to the conclusion of non-agendized public communication, we have a couple adjourn in memories. Our first adjournment will be from Supervisor Anderson, honoring Michael Hart.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Sadly, on Tuesday, September 14th, Michael Hart, a longtime Julian News publisher and past president of the San Diego County Umpires Association, passed away after battling brain and lung cancer. Michael Hart was a true landmark in Julian, wearing many hats as a community member and leader. He was also known for his love, admiration, and friendship to so many. Born and raised in La Mesa, he graduated from Grossmont High School in 1970. Michael first began coaching and serving as an umpire with the La Mesa National Little League, where he played in his youth. Michael spent a decade with a career in radio, including a stint in Sun Valley, Idaho, before returning to San Diego. Michael moved to Julian in the year 2000, where he bought the Julian News with his wife, Michelle. It was his way of giving back to the community that he clearly loved. He provided resources for individuals in need of help in ways for people to get involved in Julian. He also served as the umpire-in-chief of Julian Youth Baseball from 2010 to 2015. In 2018, he was inducted into the San Diego County Sports Official Hall of Fame. Michael Hart didn't just publish the Julian News. He encouraged locals to contribute articles, columns, and announcements of their events. He photographed people and often surprised parents when they saw their children on the front page of the Julian News. Everyone in East County knows Michael cared deeply about his Julian community, but he also cared deeply for his family, for which gave him 3 lively grandchildren who are currently 10, 11, and 12 years old. Michael Hart is survived by his loving wife, Michelle Harvey, two stepsons, Thomas and Robert, 3 grandchildren, Ariana, Nate, and Ronnie, his sister Pam, her family, cousins, and a community that loved and admired him. I was moved when I learned this, and I think we all want to be remembered this way. And Michael's wife, Michelle, shared a little about how special of a relationship they had with each other. We all know that Michael had a crazy schedule, volunteering and working to cover all the news in town. He had a special love for his family, and especially his wife. So he would make time to drive Michelle to her appointments so that they could spend that time alone and together. Michael showed his appreciation and love constantly through both big and small gestures. Michael Hart We will miss you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I would like today to adjourn our Board of Supervisors meeting in honor of a truly great San Diegan, Jim Daw. Jim Daw was an individual known for his professional career, for his tremendous and tireless civic contributions to our San Diego region, but also an individual that many of us were fortunate to have the opportunity to meet and know, an individual known for his tremendous kindness, his compassion, his love, his empathy, just a wonderful individual, a truly remarkable person. Jim was born in Bristol, Connecticut. He was the first in his family to go to college. He graduated from Lehigh University with a degree in government. UCLA Graduate School brought him to the West Coast, where he started a PhD in political science. But along the way, after starting that process, he met a fellow graduate student, Mary. He fell in love. They got married and postponed their studies to take a European honeymoon after their marriage. When they returned to Los Angeles, he taught in the Watts area for 4 years before together they started their life in San Diego. Upon coming to San Diego, Jim graduated from the University of San Diego School of Law, and he completed a master's in urban planning at the same time. He began his law practice at the firm now known as Seltzer Kaplan McMahon Wittek, where he spent his entire 42-year law career. Jim was a partner there for almost 40 years. He served as the firm's CFO and chair of the Land Use and Environmental Law Group. But working to make San Diego a better place professionally was not enough for Jim. He devoted endless and countless time and energy to the betterment of our overall community. In particular, he was passionate about public libraries. Jim Daw saw public libraries as the great equalizer, and he noted that access to learning through libraries had contributed to his success in life and had the potential to contribute to so many others. He served as chair of the San Diego Library Commission, the California State Library Board, and the Urban Libraries Council. One of his happiest and most lasting and significant accomplishments as it relates to libraries was the celebration of the opening of the San Diego Central Library in 2013, an iconic destination that so many tens of thousands of San Diegans access every single year and will be with us for so far into the future, a true legacy item and something that took vision and passion and commitment to help achieve. But above anything else, Jim's absolute love and greatest joy was his family. For 51 years, he was married to Mary, a partnership built on respect and love. His 3 children, Emily, Jeremy, and Sarah, and his 2 grandchildren, Josh and Sammy, were his pride and joy. His youngest daughter, Sarah, is a treasured member of our county family here at the County of San Diego, working in our office as a senior policy advisor. The loss of Jim Daw is a tremendous loss for our region, but the way we should view it is a tremendous inspiration to all of us, to always know that you can do more. You can do more with kindness, you can do more with empathy, you can do more with compassion, you can do more with bringing people together behind big ideas and leaving a tremendous and impactful lasting legacy, something that will remain in San Diego because of Jim Daw forever. And on behalf of the entire Board of Supervisors, we send our deepest condolences to the entire Daw family. We thank the family for sharing Jim Daw with us for so many years and having such a tremendous impact, and we adjourn today's meeting in his honor. I would also like to adjourn today's meeting in honor of Robert and Barbara Robinson, 2 Broadway Heights residents who passed away in recent months. Robbie Robinson served as the Broadway Heights Community Council president for over 30 years, and together he and his wife worked to make Broadway Heights the close-knit neighborhood it is. Everything he did was a community effort, and the Robinson family was well known and well loved throughout the neighborhood. Robbie and Barbara would always open their homes to neighbors for any and all occasions. The Robinsons spent their lives bettering their community, supporting the youth of Broadway Heights, making the neighborhood a shining light of San Diego. Just last month, the community unveiled several busts located on Martin Luther King Jr. Way, honoring local heroes who fought and advocated to make their neighborhood better. This project was Mr. Robinson's vision, a source of community pride, and it was incredibly tragic to lose him just a few days before its unveiling. But the entire community came together in that unveiling to not only talk about that project, but talk about what Robbie Robinson meant to Broadway Heights and what he meant to our region. Sadly, his wife, Barbara, passed away in August of this year, and we lost Robert one day before the unveiling of this project in Broadway Heights, but his impact will live forever in that community, and we send our deepest condolences to the Robinson family, especially their son James and daughter Roberta, and everyone who was close to both of them. With that, we will return to non-agendized public communication. I will ask the clerk to call the final speakers for today.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 15 requests to speak, matters not listed on the agenda, and they're all by phone. We will be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of their phone number. You will hear a notification that your call has been unmuted. You will then need to press *6 to unmute your phone. Each caller will be asked to state their name for the record, and you will have 2 minutes to address the board. I would remind callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. And would you mind please identifying the first caller?
Our first caller is 6004. 6004. Please press *6 to unmute. 6004. Please press *6 to unmute. We'll come back. Our next caller is 2965. 2965. Please press *6 to unmute.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. This is KB Strange. I'm a pharmacist in District 5, where our county planning group has been discussing our opposition to marijuana storefronts and cultivation in our community. The negative influence of our commercial marijuana businesses and its promotions and advertising have already been experienced by the community from the 5 permitted pot shops. As a pharmacist, I reported last month on a pilot program on the county organized by pharmacists and physicians to better inform patients regarding interactions between marijuana and their prescription drugs. This is important because there have been some medications that never should be taken with THC or CBD marijuana products, and others that should be taken only with caution or extreme caution. For an example, the website drugs.com, you'll find 26 drugs known to have major interactions with marijuana, 354 that have moderate interactions. And in addition to THC and CBD, marijuana products often contain adulterants that increase the risk of unintended drug interactions and side effects. Never has this program been more important since marijuana products with high concentrations have dominated the market, exacerbating already negative health outcomes for our patients and your residents. So in conclusion, as a pharmacist, I'd like to ask, why now do you want to enable more retail settings that normalize high-potency marijuana products to be sold in our neighborhoods? Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Our next caller is 7663. 7663. Please press *6 to unmute. 7663. Please press *6 to unmute. We'll come back. Our next caller is 3800. 3800. Please press *6 to unmute.
Thank you. My name is Barbara Gordon, and I'm here today to share my concerns that the community voice has been ignored and excluded by the Board of Supervisors as they have made many changes to the municipal code for the 5 existing marijuana businesses. These review process changes will not protect our community, but only favor the marijuana industry, which seems to be the most important voice that the county is listening to. Why do we continue to want to increase the influence of the marijuana industry is a puzzle to me. I work with young people, and expanding the commercialization of marijuana businesses will have long-lasting consequences to public health and safety for our community, but especially for young people. Substance abuse disorder touches families in every community. Evidence-based research shows permissive policies of marijuana businesses increases the access and availability. It's frustrating when policymakers ignore the research regarding the harms of marijuana, primarily by those who stand to profit from it. I urge the board to be a champion of evidence-based prevention policies when it comes to marijuana that will ensure all young people have the skills, knowledge, and resources to live a full and healthy life. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is 8458. 8458. Please press star 6 to unmute. 8458.
Hi, good afternoon or good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Lisa Linka. I'm an ADA with California Family Advocate and ADA Advocate. I'm also founder of PAS Family Advocacy in San Diego. And basically, we have state actors impeding on civil rights and family court, juvenile court, all throughout Southern California. We have literally 1,000 families that we're working with the Family Court Anti-Coalition movement, with the Fathers Have Rights movement, and in regards to raising awareness for parental alienation, this type of domestic violence, which is intimate partner violence. You know, parental rights are unalienable rights. The 14th Amendment contains a number of important concepts, most famously state action, privileges, and immunities, citizenship, and due process and equal protection, all of which are contained in Section 1. However, the state has no lawful authority to intrude on unalienable or fundamental rights. Yet, Mr. Rob Bonta has been contacted for judicial oversight in San Diego, Los Angeles, Contra Costa County, and there has been no accountability. We have thousands of families screaming out for help, all for its Title 4D and Title 4E funding is an intrusion on our families, and we are begging you for state oversight in family and juvenile courts. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 7159. 7159. Please press star 6 to unmute.
Good morning. I'm Mark Wilcox, father and grandfather. I'm passionate about protecting children from drug use that short circuits their journey to adulthood faster than any other problem. County residents have been told that the main reason we need marijuana businesses in the unincorporated areas is to eliminate or reduce the black market. Last week, an article in Politico titled, "The California's Legal Weed Industry Can't Compete with Illicit Market," came to 4 conclusions. 1, you don't have a real marijuana industry if the dominant portion of it has no interest in being legal. The underground market in California is far too entrenched, with dealer-customer arrangements going back decades. 2, Department of Cannabis Control has no enforcement mandate from state legislature. 3, penalties on illegal marijuana businesses of a misdemeanor and $500 fine is simply too low to dissuade illicit activity. And 4, local enforcement agencies are stymied by a lack of adjudication of the arrests of unpermitted business owners. It is clear that permitting marijuana businesses does not and never has eliminated or even reduced the black market. Or as the Politico article states, the divide between legal and illegal is too big a gap to overcome. The question is, have we always known that? I think we have, and that using the black market as the reason to permit more marijuana businesses, I'm sorry to say, is just a smokescreen for making money off disease and addiction. If there was ever a reason to follow the science, this is to protect our children, environment, and communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is 6598. 6598. Please press star 6 to unmute.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. This is Ann Riddle, a parent advocate who called in today to thank the Board of Supervisors for their past action regarding flavored tobacco products. We understand here in San Diego County through the San Diego County Tobacco Control Coalition that includes public health advocates and parents that flavors hook kids, and flavors have played a key role in creating the youth vaping epidemic and maintaining high rates of tobacco use in African American and LGBTQ communities. And menthol, that original flavor, made starting easier and addiction stronger and quitting harder. And of course, the fruity flavors came along to exaggerate that situation. We recognize the need to protect young people and vulnerable populations from the tobacco industry. However, the tobacco industry has billions of dollars at their disposal to counter our good public health work and the Board of Supervisors work. And we look at this as an example of the clout of big tobacco to undo public health. And now we're looking at this very same situation regarding big marijuana, the ability to undo really good work. And we know that this last year that smoking and vaping of marijuana rates has increased as demonstrated by the sale of these products. So we ask ourselves, as long as we're eliminating the sale of flavored tobacco products, why don't we eliminate the sale of marijuana tobacco products, since they are contributing not only to that high use by our young people, but increasing the use of tobacco products at the same time. Thank you for your consideration. The time to act now is now, because children are defenseless against big tobacco and big marijuana. Thank you.
Thank you. Recalling 6004. 6004. Please press star 6 to unmute. 6004. Please press star 6 to unmute. Recalling 7663. Oh.
Hi, I'm sorry. I did it 3 times. Anyway, my name is Diane Lopez Hughes. I live in Supervisor Nathan Fletcher's district and a member of San Diego 350 and the Interfaith Coalition on Climate Justice. I'm calling to share my concern that the county takes seriously their responsibility on climate action at this pivotal time in our history. Among many concerns, the regional carbonization framework needs to maintain the goal of zero carbon emissions by 2035 and be detailed on how it will meet this goal. Collaboration with the 18 cities, the Port District, Sandag, MTS, and the school districts is essential to get the region to zero carbon by 2035. Also, the county must include environmental justice concerns and incorporate the voices of the communities most impacted by the climate crisis. Meaningful outreach to these communities is necessary in order to find equitable ways to answer their needs. Of all places, Californians know the increasingly damaging effects of this climate crisis. So your leadership is extremely important for this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Recalling 7663. 7663. If you'd like to speak, please press star 6 to unmute. 7663.
Hello, Maria Rivera. I'm in District 4, and I'm here to talk about how the county must prioritize climate action. We have the recent IPCC report calling out Code Red for humanity, and it made it clear that local, state, and federal governments need to act now. I urge the regional to keep the regional decarbonization framework with its goal of zero emissions by 2035. It also needs to include the 18 cities, the Port, Sandag, MTS, and the school districts in a collaborative effort and make real concrete goals to get us to zero emissions in 2035. We saw with the pandemic also that working class and low-income communities do not have the safety net to combat ecological crisis of this nature, of this size. And so I also would like to see real outreach and real research done into what and how these communities will be impacted. Thank you so much for your time.
Chair Fletcher, that concludes the request for non-agenda public communication this morning.
Okay, with that, we are going to adjourn into closed session. We will begin closed session at 11:30. And with that, we stand adjourned.
The board will now recess into closed session to consider those matters listed under item 21 on yesterday's agenda. If there are any reportable actions, they will be reported after the conclusion of closed session today. The next regular meeting of the board will take place on Tuesday, November 16th, 2021 at 9 a.m.